This is a picture of Wayne Tbaugh. He was born in Mesa, Arizona in 1920, and he went to high school in California where he enjoyed working on the stage crew in theatrical productions. This experience had the strongest effect on his later work. Tbaugh also enjoyed cartooning and illustration and was hired by Walt Disney Studios to draw in their animation department when he was only 16 years old. In the 1950s, Tbaugh began to paint cakes, pies, ice cream, club sandwiches, and candy machines. At first, his work was not at all popular, but in 1962, he had a one-man art show in New York City displaying all his works, and it was a huge success. The Museum of Modern Art in New York and private art collectors bought up his paintings. They loved his use of thick paint and the way he used color. All right, let's get started. You're going to need a pencil, you're going to need your brown paper, your watercolor paper, and your oil pastels. Go ahead and get those out. I'd also like you to get a scratch piece of paper out. So go ahead and just grab any scratch piece of paper that you have, and then we'll get started. We're going to start by drawing a whole cake, a whole round tall cake. So draw an oval and then 2 straight lines down, however tall you want the cake. And then you're going to draw another half oval that matches the top oval at the bottom. Okay, and then you'll want to draw an ellipse just around the base, kind of like a hat almost, for the plate that the cake would be sitting on. Okay, now find another spot on the scratch paper or turn it over, and we're going to draw a slice of cake. So again, start with 2 straight lines vertically, and then start a little bit down in the middle and draw another vertical straight line. Now you're going to connect the top left to the top middle, and then the top middle to the top right line. Now you're going to connect the bottom right to the middle line. Notice that we didn't necessarily go to the very bottom of that line because you want to keep the line parallel to that top line. And now we're going to connect the bottom left to the bottom middle. Now let's make it a layer cake, again, using parallel lines, and just make as many layers to that particular piece of cake that you'd like. I'm just making 2 layers. All right, now we just have to round off those top, and you've got a piece of cake. All right, now let's make an ellipse at the bottom, and that's the plate that the cake is sitting on. Great job. Okay, we've still got 2 other pieces of cake to practice, so find another spot on your scrap paper, and let's start again. All right, let's draw 3 parallel diagonal lines. Now we will connect the 3 bottom points and the 3 top points of those lines. Now from the bottom left corner, we're going to draw a horizontal line that matches up with that top left corner. Now we're going to round out that side of the pie. This is a piece of cake that's laying on its side. Okay, now we're just going to add the ellipse in of the plate, and you've got a piece of cake laying on its side on a plate. Okay, find one more area on your scratch piece of paper and draw 3 horizontal parallel lines. Now connect the 3 points on the left and the 3 points on the right. All right, now I would like you to draw a diagonal line either to the right top point or to the left top point, doesn't matter. Notice I stopped at about 2/3 of the way. Now we're going to draw a curved line in between those 2 top points. All right, let's finish off the plate at the bottom. All right, now I want you to think of what you want your project to actually look like. Do you want a piece of cake lying down? Do you want a whole cake? Do you want 2 pieces of cake? So think about what direction you want to turn your paper, whether you want it portrait or whether you want it horizontal. Okay, so go ahead and get out your watercolor paper and align it how you'd like to, whether it's horizontal or vertically. And I'm going to be going over some of these different cakes again if you'd like to follow me. Otherwise, if you already remember how to do it and you know what you're going to do, go ahead and draw it on there. I'm going to start with a standing up slice of cake. Go ahead and draw 3 horizontal lines that are parallel to each other. If you want to do this kind of cake, connect the 3 points on the sides. Then choose one of the sides and draw a diagonal line up about 2/3 of the way and connect those 2 points with a curve. Now, since I want to try putting more than one slice of cake on this particular piece of paper, I'm going to draw the other slice of cake before I actually draw in the plate. So this one's going to be the laying down slice of cake. So you start by 3 parallel diagonal lines, and then you connect the top 3 points and the bottom 3 points. Then from the bottom left point, you draw a horizontal line out to match that top left point, and then connect it with a curve. At this stage, you can start to draw in some plates that will fit both these cakes in. So go ahead and draw the ellipses and make them fit if you want to put multiple pieces of cake on your particular project. Now this third piece of cake that I draw, I don't end up keeping, but you can, if you want to do a standing up looking straight on at the piece of cake, draw 3 vertical lines, and then you choose what angle you want for the top diagonal lines, and then you can erase the part that you don't need. I go ahead and connect those top 2 right and left points with a curve, and then match the diagonal on the sides with the top. And if you want to make it a layer cake, make it a layer cake, and then draw in your plate. Okay, for this particular example, I decided I want to draw these pieces of cake on a table, so I draw a horizontal line representing the table. Now maybe you want to do a full-size cake, and so in that sense, I'm going to go ahead and turn my paper to a portrait and draw a full-size cake by drawing the oval and the 2 vertical parallel lines on the side, and then drawing the half oval at the bottom that matches the top oval bottom, and then drawing your plate. Now, similar to the last composition, I'd like this cake to be on a table, so I am going to draw in the table line in the back. Okay, here's another idea. I decided to just draw one piece of cake that's lying on its side on a portrait, just big in the middle. If you want to, you can get out a straight edge, like maybe the side of your glue stick container, to draw these diagonal lines if you'd like. But again, you need, for laying on its side cake, 3 diagonal lines parallel to each other. And then you will connect the bottom points and you'll connect the top points. And then don't forget the horizontal line that meets up with that top left corner. And then draw the curved line in between the 2 to round out the side of the pie. And in this time, I want to make this a multi-layer cake, so I'm going to add in some more diagonal lines as though there's 4 stacks of cake here. Okay, and then just add in your plate. Now in this one, I'm going to show you it's okay to not have a table line. Like maybe your neighbor wants to have a table line, but you don't. So it's totally fine if you just want to have this plate sitting with cake on a table that you don't see the table line. That's totally fine. Now it's time to get out your oil pastels and color in your cakes as you want. Now you can make these like cakes that you really like to eat right now. You can make them fantasy cakes. It's up to you. You choose what color cake you want, what flavor cake you want. It's up to you. I do recommend, notice how I'm outlining each layer with a color, and then in this case I want to make it like a chocolate cake, so I'm not completely coloring it in really hard. I'm leaving white space because I'm gonna let it have a chance to have more texture by also using watercolor in this. So I am going to color some of it, and I'm going to color it in kind of circular, and it'll give it kind of a cakey texture in the method that I'm going to use. Now for the frosting, I am going to color the frosting quite firm and hard. But again, this is your cake. You can decide how you want it to look. I'm just giving you some ideas. Again, in this top part of the cake, I am showing you how you outline it pretty firmly, and then you just color in gingerly in a circular fashion in the middle, and it should give it kind of a cake texture when we add in the watercolor. So now, like I said, when you do the frosting, you probably want to do it a little bit more firm, so because frosting is a little bit more smooth, and so you probably want to press harder and maybe just use the oil pastels to mix what kind of colors you want for the frosting, because it already has kind of a smooth, creamy feel to it. The oil pastels do. I don't think the watercolors necessarily would give it a smooth, creamy feeling, but the oil pastels definitely do. Now, don't feel restricted by just one color. You can add in little bits. Like I was thinking this is kind of like a German chocolate cake with pecan bits in it. So get creative. You can make it as realistic or as fantastical as you would like. This is your cake. Have fun and enjoy. Now, this particular one, I want to make it a lemon cake or a yellow cake. And notice how I outlined the layer of the cake, and then I will add whatever filling I want in the middle. And just realize that you want to use your light colors first when you're using your oil pastels. You'll be more successful. So if you're choosing like a frosting that's white, or in this case, like the yellow cake, you'd want to do the yellow before the darker colors. And then remember in the cake part to leave white space for your watercolors. And then in the frosting part, push really hard and maybe use some mixtures of colors so you have a very smooth feel to the frosting area. Now I want to show you one of the other cakes that we drew. And I was originally thinking that I wanted to make this one like a very dark chocolate cake with like a Oreo cookie kind of a feel frosting to it. But what happens is that I do the darks first and then it doesn't work. So I have to switch gears. So that's why it's important to do your white first and not your darks first. And you'll see why as I try to apply the white, it doesn't work because I've already got the black there. I would have needed to put the white down first. So then I switch gears and make it a cherry chocolate cake. So just be flexible. Sometimes there's happy, maybe things don't work out how you want, but you can always alter it. Okay, and remember, I recommend if you are doing one of the slices of cake where your cake layer is actually showing, leave some white space in that cake area for you to add the watercolor to it. And again, in the frosting areas, make it very heavy-bodied, all oil pastel. It looks really good if you mix oil pastel colors, but don't leave white space in the frosting areas. At least I recommend blending some of the oil pastel colors. Some other fun things you can do in the frosting areas is adding in some embellishments, such as, like I decided this is going to be a cherry chocolate cake, so I'm going to put some cherries on it. And one big cherry sitting at the bottom, laying on it. So you can do fun things like that as well. Also, if you feel comfortable, remember with the snowmen at midnight, we added in some highlights. So I'm going to pretend the light is coming from the top left, and I'm going to add in some highlight to help round out those cherries and to add some highlights to the frosting area. Likewise, I will take the blue and I will add in some of the darks. So that's another thing that you can do to your cake if you feel comfortable and if that's something that you'd like to do. Okay, my last example of a cake is a cake that I don't even see the inside part of the cake. And I'm just going to see the outside frosting. So again, with the frosting, I want to go heavy bodied. And this one, I really wanted to do my Oreo cookie cake. So I learned from my mistake before, and I am going to do the white first for this particular cake on the frosting area. And then I will add in some little chocolate bits to the top, and then I will also add in some embellishments of Oreo cookies on the top. So now I can add in the black parts because the black can sit on top of the white without a problem. So again, in this frosting area below, I'm going to apply the white first, heavy bodied, and then after the white's on how I want it, then I will apply the black to put the cookies on it. And I decided I wanted some more chocolate or cookie bits at the top. Okay, once you've finished your cake decorating, now with the oil pastels, now you need to choose what color plate you want. So I'm just gonna quickly show you how I color in these plates. One of them Some of them I do white, some of them I do green, some of them I do red. But you can choose whatever color you'd like. Just make sure you press really hard along the edge of the plate, and depending on how deep of a color you want for the plate, if you want it to be white or if you want it to be a color, if you want to use the watercolor on it, then you'll leave some white space. If you don't want to use any watercolor on it, then you'll just press hard. Okay, and also don't forget to add in your shading of where the darks are and the lights are, with your highlights and your shading with either the whites or the blues, if you feel comfortable with that. I realized that we forgot to do that on this Oreo cookie cake, so you'll see me also add in some of the darks under the cake and then also at the base of the cookies, to add in some depth to it. Next, you have to decide what you're going to do with your background. So you'll want to choose whatever color you want for your table or your wall. If you're having a table line or a horizon line, you might also want to add some patterns into your wall or table area. Again, you can do this with your oil pastels and then complete the look with the watercolor on the top. So work on your background and then we will talk again. If you haven't added the shading to the plates or the cake area, you might, and you have time, you might, and you haven't done it yet, you might go ahead and try to add it now, just like I did on this one. Okay, now it's time to get out your watercolors. Get your water cup, put water in it, get your paper towel or toilet paper, get your watercolor palette out and your watercolor brush. And now you simply apply the watercolor however you had planned it. Like in this chocolate cake, I'm adding in the brown watercolor to give it a little bit more texture, and to fill in those white areas. Notice I don't need to do it in the frosting area because I already pressed really hard and got that smooth, full, heavy body feeling there in the frosting area. But for the cake, I'm now, notice how it looks like it's cake that you'd want to scrumptiously eat. Now make sure as you're using the watercolors, if you need to change out your water, do that, so that you get the colors that you want. And then once you've colored in your cake with your watercolor, you can start doing your plates or your backgrounds, however, whatever you've planned. Remember, the more water you use, the lighter the color. The less water you use and more pigment you use, that'll be a deeper color. So I can't wait to see your projects. Have fun, and I hope you enjoyed making your fantasy cakes. I will continue showing you how I completed the rest of these. Now I just want to point out to you, you don't have to do a pattern in the background. Like this one just has that one yellow line separating the blue and the yellow. So you can be as creative as you would like. Just realize that that oil pastel line is helping you to keep those two different watercolors separated from each other. Once you get done with your watercolors, if there's some other embellishment you want to add, like I wanted to add another Oreo cookie on this, feel free, just make sure it's dry in a dry area. Okay, now it's time to clean up. So put your oil pastels away, clean your watercolor things up, wash the brush, dry the brush, get everything all wrapped up and zipped up and dried up, and then get everything back into your art toolkit, please. This is the last project of the year, so make sure everything is sealed up very well and that everything gets put back in there. And make sure it's also inside the main bag that says 4th grade. And then get it to your teacher and she will get it to the art room. You may now throw away all your other pieces of paper. All right, now that we're done, I wish you a wonderful summer and thanks for a wonderfully fun art year. We'll see you next year. I hope you've had fun making your fantasy cakes.